Welcome everyone to the Grenke Freestyle Open round number 7. We have Harshit Raja versus Arjun Erigaisi, India number 2, and joining me to commentate on this game is none other than
It's me, guys. I was playing against Arjun. The game just happened today in the 7th round of Grenke. Was very excited to play against the madman here.
Yes, look at yourself, Harshit Bhai. You are looking very excited. The position has been set up. You hardly get time to think here.
There is no time to think. They give us the starting position and we start immediately after, and that's the handshake.
There we go. So the position is knight, bishop, knight, rook, king, queen, bishop, rook. And what's the first move difficult? Oh, you are removing your jacket?
Yeah, I was getting ready for the fight. I was just checking if Baju ke board pe someone has made a move, but I felt like, okay, I really need to think myself when I'm playing against Arjun. So I started this thought right now of what to do for the first move, and there I go for e4, opening up my queen.
Yeah, this is actually a nice move, opening the queen. But the king also gets a little bit exposed. It's a very interesting first move, and Arjun immediately challenges you with f5.
Yeah, Arjun played this move immediately, and I've noticed in freestyle it's good to take space, which is why I was considering this move e5 a lot. So I was thinking for a few minutes, and
But did you also think about taking?
e5, then he takes with the queen on f5. I cannot move the c pawn because my bishop on b1 is hanging, and there I go for e5, gaining space in the center.
And now with this space gain, you want to bolster it with f4 and d4. So Arjun immediately says, I won't let your pawns get together.
Exactly. He goes f4, stops me from going f4, and at the same time he threatens to go f3 himself. So I go f3 myself, stopping him from going f3.
And also opening up your bishop. At this point, I think White's position already looks very nice.
Yeah, I mean, it now that, we have the engines with us, and I've analyzed this a bit more, it does look quite good for White. He goes knight c b6. I was very surprised by this.
Yeah, what is happening here? But, I mean, this knight could have gone here.
Exactly. And I really tried to understand, but he wanted to do long castle at some point, which is why he opened up that square for the king.
And you just captured the space in the center.
I just went d4, yeah. Supporting my e5 pawn. He goes c5, challenging my d4 pawn. I was very shocked by this move. I was really not expecting. You can see from my facial expression, I looked away and I'm like, what is happening? He really wants to go for a crazy fight right from the get-go?
Yeah, and actually if you look at the time, you both have almost equal time on the clock. And here, you just took the pawn. And which means that his knight is attacked. Your pawn becomes a bit weak, but I think you are going for something whereby his knight has to move now.
Exactly, and also after d takes c5, my bishop on g1 gets a bit more space, maybe can go to d4. So he goes knight to c4, attacking the e5 pawn, but also the b2 pawn, which is very important to defend. So of course I had to defend it. I think for a few seconds, and knight d3. Yeah, this is very obvious, defending both b2 and e5.
And at this point, Arjun said, okay, let me at least get my pawn back. He takes, knight takes e5.
Yeah, and I think this was a very crucial moment, because that knight on e5 is one of the most active pieces that black has. And I feel that this move, long castle, was a bit inaccurate. I should have rather taken that knight and then castled, threatening bishop d4 next. And this would have been better. Instead, I did long castle, and now knight c6 immediately spotted by Arjun, because that knight was very important.
What's the point of going back?
He recognized that that knight is more superior than my knight.
And so you went here, you want to centralize your knight on e4.
Yeah, I wanted to get my knight on e4, and I walk up there from the chair. The pressure was really heating up in this game. Bishop e6, trying to go queen f7 and short castle, trying to do a small switcheroo there.
By the way, Harshit, are you feeling a bit nervous at this point, or you were feeling confident?
I was a bit nervous actually, but I was happy to do this knight f2, knight e4, because now queen f7 will be met by knight to g5. So that's what my idea was.
Yeah, and right
but
now
h6 was so smart by
Arjun. He stopped your idea.
Exactly.
But at this point, why not bring the other knight into the game?
Yeah, I think knight b3 could have been a better move there. Just trying to develop my
pieces.
But
what is this, Harshit Bhai?
g4. I kind of was preparing against him castling. I thought that if he ever castles, it would be good to have my pawn on g4, so that h4, g5 would come very quickly. but Arjun goes queen f7, hitting the pawn on a2.
Were you worried about this pawn?
For sure. I had to go knight b3, I had to defend that pawn, but also I developed my knight. So knight b3 was a very logical move there.
At this point, you have 44 minutes on the clock and Arjun has 1 hour. He brings his bishop into the center of the board. Is he eyeing your king's side here? I mean, king's position.
For sure. And he was also trying to bring his knight from c7. I go knight d4, sacrificing a pawn on a2. But maybe a bit too hasty there. c3 was more solid and would have kept things under control.
Yes, but right now, you know that Arjun is a big pawn grabber. And I think he was pretty sure that he would take it.
Yeah, I was expecting him to take on a2.
But
However,
what's your idea now?
I thought that, if I exchange some pieces, his knight on a8 is very bad. His knight on a8 is passive. So I thought maybe the activity would give me some initiative. Knight takes c6 was my idea, and I was expecting b takes.
You were expecting this,
B
but
takes.
Arjun shocked you here.
He completely shocked me with the next move because I really did not expect him to capture with d takes c6 played by Arjun, allowing me to capture his rook on d8.
But then he loses his castling right, doesn't he?
Exactly, he loses his castling right, which is actually what will happen in the game. I have to take on d8. I have to try to get some compensation. I take on d8. King takes d8. Of course, the only move for Arjun there. Yes, he writes the move and takes on d8. And now, although I'm a pawn down, I do have some small compensation, because my knight on e4 is good, his knight on e8 is not developed. So I give a check on d3.
You bring your queen in, you want to bring your bishop in, then the rook into the game, isn't it?
Yeah, king c8 there. And of course, I have to bring my rook from h1 in the game. So I go bishop to d4 exchanging.
This is a great tactic that you set up, Harshit Bhai, because bishop d4, I would be very scared of pin here.
Yes, Brad prepared such a cool tactic, queen a3. I was actually hoping that this is what Arjun missed, but Arjun quickly played bishop c4 and destroyed my dream.
And he attacks your queen, and you have to move your queen, and there's hardly any square, because if you go here, now rook
Then the
d8
pin
would be
is
very
nasty,
strong.
yeah.
So queen c3 was played here, and you are attacking him, and he takes your bishop, queen takes. And in the resulting position, now you are a pawn down.
Pawn down, but decent compensation, right? Because my pawn on c5 is actually quite strong. He goes rook d8, hitting my queen. Of course, I have to go somewhere. So I go to e5. The queen is the strongest when it's centralized. That's what I do in this position. I try to centralize my queen. I go queen to e5.
Nice move. And right now your queen is centralized, but what about your bishop? It's not into the game.
Yeah, that bishop is really passive.
And Arjun finally brings his last piece into the game, knight c7. At this point, did you feel like you had chances in this game, or you were already feeling like things are getting out of hand?
I think the trajectory of the game was making me a bit nervous because I went from having a very good position to slightly worse now, and trying to shift that mindset was a bit difficult. I go rook e1 though, trying to keep things under control, stopping bishop e2, but rook to d5 hits my queen.
And you
I have to
quickly
go
come
back. And
but
now
you are attacking this bishop. However, Arjun completely ignores it.
he goes knight to b5. I spotted this move a bit too late because queen takes c4, rook d1 check is a dangerous disco hitting my queen on c4.
And now queen b4 was the best move perhaps, but you decided to go queen a5.
Yeah, I went queen a5 because I was hoping that I would have some ideas connected with the mate on d8 or maybe perhaps the pawn on a7. But Arjun was clinical after this point. His calculation was sublime. He made sure to calculate all the right moves from here and goes knight to d4, sacrificing the pawn on a7.
Why did he give this pawn? Like, what happens if you
If
take
I
it?
take knight e2 check. And
It's a
my
mate,
king
so
is
you have to
almost- I have
take-
bishop takes and
there's a mate.
Yeah, and this is completely winning for him. So I instead chose to go for knight to d2, but this was also
To attack the bishop.
Yeah, but now again, Arjun showing why he's one of the best attackers goes things for a bit here actually.
He was thinking, and look at him. He's so calmly
He's
thinking.
so focused.
And he finds this amazing sequence here, which starts off with knight e2 check. He's thinking about it. Check.
Yeah, he goes for it.
And now you can move your king.
And king d1, and it for a second it feels like white is doing okay. For a second it feels like white is doing okay, hitting the knight on e2. But b6 is a very strong
takes.
move. If you just go back after b6, queen takes a7 would have been met by rook takes d2. that would have been a really
And
tough
then
move.
queen d5 mate.
Yeah.
But in the game, you took the knight, bishop takes, and you put your bishop pinning here. But he had rook takes d2 prepared.
Oof, if bishop takes f7, rook d1 is checkmate, so I could not do that. I realize I'm having a tough position. I put my hand on the head. I take with the king on d2, and now Arjun quickly plays bishop to c4.
But things are not so bad, are they? Because you go into a queen endgame where you are only one pawn down.
But my king on d2 is very exposed. My pawn on f3 is weak. So bishop takes c4. He takes on c4 back with his queen. And at this point I realize that if I take the pawn on a7,
Yeah.
he has queen d4 check and then queen e3 check, and then he picks up my f3 pawn, after which his f pawn is just going to roll down the board. So I think that it was at this point where I think for some time I tried to see if I have some chances, and I resigned there.
You resigned here? Don't you think you resigned too soon, Harshit bhai?
No, I really was not in the mood to suffer in this endgame and lose eventually, because I knew that this endgame with his queen being centralized is just losing for me.
What are you talking now after the game?
Yeah, I asked him what he felt my mistake was, and then Arjun told me his thoughts about the game. But actually, maybe this position was quite complicated, so both of us were, had a tough time evaluating it. In the end, though, it was Arjun
Who came out victorious, and Harshit bhai, you played against one of the biggest talents in the world of chess. World number, right now he's world number 5, but at some point he was world number 2, has crossed 2800. That must have been special playing him.
Very special experience. I mean, I'm definitely going to keep this game in my memory book. Very great experience in this freestyle event in Grenke.
Absolutely. And with this, you are on 4 points out of 7 with 2 rounds to go. Playing Arjun, playing Nepo. I think a wonderful experience. Thank you, Harshit bhai, for sharing your analysis with us.
Thank you, Sagar bhai, and both of us signing off.
Bye bye.